Here's Games of Thrones Season 3, Episode 4, and now his watch is ended. This is an episode of betrayals, alliances, betrayals again, alliances formed. So what it's doing is that it's setting up, obviously, future episodes of trying to set up alliances that double cross the person they're setting alliances, or friendship is formed. But it's really about basically control and power, which is one of the underlying themes of Games of Thrones. Everybody's trying to con another person, but this is the episode of people kind of joining. And of course the episode ends with Dany's all-out con job and portrayal of the slave masters, which has lasted a few episodes. Which is kind of the great thing about Games of Thrones, is that there's so many there's so many characters, and I keep making fun of it. There's 8 storylines in every episode, and it's hard to follow. But you didn't think they were, hey, Dany and the dragons are not going to be in this episode. Then she shows up 40 minutes in, and really the episode is basically about her. So you have basically 40 minutes of a lot of setup and alliances and things like that, and then Dany kind of steals the show with her betrayal, and you're kind of wondering where they're going to go with that, and they kind of paid it off a lot, and I know that a lot of the fanboys are happy because of it. And you also got the basically the setup of Ramsay, who you think that Joffrey. I was joking with somebody last week about how Joffrey is one of the great villains in TV history, but Ramsay kind of could be a better villain because he has the same kind of deceptiveness of Joffrey, but he's kind of the wild card in him, where he has skills and he's a killer, where Joffrey's kind of a villain from a puppeteer standpoint, where he can get people to do things, but he doesn't really have skills himself. So where Ramsay is kind of the ultimate villain. So it's kind of interesting where they're going. Yeah, it's hard to watch it because anytime you start talking about Games of Thrones during the week, it's people have read the books and they start telling you things you don't want to hear. So I'm trying to be just on what's happening in the television show without knowing what's going to happen in the future. But it's every time you start talking about Game of Thrones with everybody else in the real world, or you just pop on an article on the internet, you start getting information and you don't want to get it. So right now all I know is that this episode was about alliances being formed, about people trying to figure out what angles for themselves and figure out angles supposedly for the long-term thing. And then it's kind of cool. Then there's always the Lita Headey character, who has been told twice now by her brother and now her father, where she's smart, but she's not as smart as she thinks she is. And that's kind of a red herring comment, meaning that that she's up to something no good, and she might win in the end. That's my review.